Meeting's over. No meetings.
All right, I believe we have quorum. Megan did send an email that she's
She's not there
getting
yet.
online yet.
Hopefully
Okay,
that one soon.
we'll watch for Megan, but I think we still have. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and begin with the minutes from March 20th. Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Action items, resolution in 2025-01 designating reserves.
Yeah, so this is based off of last year's end of the year, per policy, anytime we do anything with our designated reserves, we need to get board action to approve. So what we're looking at doing is designating $979,479 to the operations reserve. That will get us to our board policy in 3 months of an operational reserve. So with pay increases, things like that from last year, that's what we needed to be able to accommodate that. And then we also want to release 1.25 million from the pad replacement reserve so that we can pay our hexagon roll. Looking for action to go ahead and make those changes and to sign this resolution. Any questions?
So. Is that one resolution or two?
It's one.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? One abstention?
Yep.
Carries. Uh, 2024 bars report.
Yeah, so we are looking to submit our 2024 bars report. This is what we submit to the state to let them know what our financial situation is. Jenny and Tim work hard on this. They've done a great job the last few years. It's the same process, same thing we've always done. So we need to submit this by the end of the month. So we're looking for just an action at this time to be able to submit that. We've done that in the past. The board has approved us submitting the bars, and once we have that approval, we'll go forward.
So moved. Motion. Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Very much.
Well, I like this agenda. Creation and designation of authority to mediation committee. Back to Lori.
All right, so we're having some discussion and with both the city and the county regarding our mediation that's coming up on June 11th. And there's been some conversations back and forth between some legal folks, and so I'm actually going to pass it to Jeff and let him kind of explain what we're looking to do.
So as you guys are aware, hopefully, we're mediating a couple of issues with the city of Spokane and Spokane County on June the 11th. It's an all-day mediation. In order for us to prepare for that mediation, we need to have the ability as counsel for SREC to speak with SREC and make sure that those communications are privileged. We reached out to the city and said we'd like to discuss this in executive session and exclude city members who are members of the SREC board so that we can maintain confidences there. Now, the city said, sounds good. We'd also like that the county, because the county is also involved in SREC and governance of such, we would like for the county to be excluded from any of those conversations. I don't necessarily share in that opinion, but out of good faith, what we're going to do is create a mediation authority committee that this board would grant authority to that committee. It will not be apprised of any members of the city of Spokane. It will not be apprised of any members of Spokane County. So that does whittle down who can sit on that board or that committee. But that's what we're asking here today, is that we create this committee so that that committee can mediate the case with the county, with the city of Spokane, and hopefully come to some sort of resolution.
Through process of elimination, you know, that would leave, you know, Brad Richmond, Frank Soto, Howard Johnson, Guy Sears, and myself, right, in the spirit of of good faith.
Correct.
And I think that leaves certainly enough people to represent the interests of this group, if the board is comfortable with that. And probably
It
three
avoids,
to four people, Jeff. Is that
yeah, and
probably
it
what we're looking
avoids any conflict of interest for anybody who might be a member of the city and also a member of SREC and a member of the county and also a member of SREC. It eliminates all of that potential conflict of interest issues. So it really streamlines the process for us to be able to have privileged communications with the board, prepared for mediation, as it also protects the county and the city in those conversations as well.
I do have one quick question. I know that the Spokane Valley would like some representation there. Would the city view Chief Ellis as a representative of the county or the city of Spokane Valley?
The county. They've explicitly stated that as an employee.
Ridiculous.
So a clarifying question for myself. So this, are we talking about executive session of this board that would limit to those people? Or are we talking about something separate?
That's exactly what we're talking about, is for purposes of discussing mediation. If we were to go into executive session to discuss mediation
For SREC.
for SREC, it would be discussing it with those members of the mediation committee.
Okay, which is this mediation authority committee that we're talking about, okay. Not, and that's not necessarily who would go to the mediation.
It would be those people who would be welcome to attend the mediation
I see.
on behalf of SREC.
Okay. And not the others.
And not on behalf of the county or the city. The city and the county will have their own representation and representatives at mediation.
I see, okay. Okay, kind of two roles then.
So there's
Sort of.
three
Similar.
bodies then.
Well, so the mediation is, the parties at mediation are the city of Spokane and Spokane County. SREC is also attending as we're really negotiating between the city and the county, whether or not the city of Spokane joins SREC. And so SREC is involved in that mediation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that helps.
Is there any way we could get a representative from Spokane Valley involved in that? I don't want their voice to, I mean, Chief Ellis is their voice here at the table and
Yeah.
the city somehow managed to convince us that he shouldn't have that voice. I think we need to give it to him somehow.
Well, and for question for clarification, is there still the ability for those folks to have their voice, but via the county, right, with the three distinct bodies, right? Scott still certainly has the ability to sit on the team for the county as well as Sheriff, Chief Ellis. My opinion is that allowable. Would that be a way to bring Chief Ellis's voice to the
The way that we're positioning it with the mediation committee, that would be where the representation would come from in the county.
as an option?
I think it has a significant budgetary impact on the city's Spokane. I think it's in some capacity there needs to be a voice for them.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you, what's the best way to accomplish that?
Well, I mean,
Is that
would
via
there
the
be,
county? Does that suffice or is there another way?
I don't think it
to
would
approach
for the valley. I don't think it should for the valley. They're their own municipality and they're a significant player at this table. They have a significant financial impact from what happens. Is there a way to allow either the city manager or a member of his staff to be a part of that?
We can certainly reach out and ask. My suspicion is that the response from the city is going to be that it's a conflict. And that any communications would be not subject to privilege.
So they're members.
So it's we included the email for why we're doing this and part of the board packets. And if you look at the email from City Attorney Mike Pickle dated May 8th. Start that dated May 12. He says, and they're talking about who who represents whom, basically, even the players. Mr. Piccolo says, I agree that it would be a conflict for any member of the SREC board who holds a leadership position with another agency involved in the mediation to participate in executive session. I trust that the conflict of interest would be applied by the SREC board to its members, including Sheriff John Knowles, CEO Scott Simmons, as well as Dave Ellis, who, as a Spokane County Sheriff Officer, serves the Spokane Valley Police Chief, serves as the Spokane Valley Police Chief. So that's the city's position.
I understand that, but I'm talking about a non-board member, because they've disqualified him, being able to represent somebody who's not a county employee, somebody who's a city of Spokane Valley employee, being able.
Well, we would then run into issues with having
Our bylaws.
board member.
Got it.
Having privilege.
Okay. Sure, you can all imagine this will probably cause significant relationship issues with us in the Spokane Valley going into the future, meaning SREC in Spokane Valley.
Hopefully, I recognize that, hopefully they can appreciate it's not SREC or the Spokane Valley pushing for this, right? I'm sorry, SREC or Spokane County.
Right.
Back to me. We're looking for the creation and designation of authority to the mediation committee. As Cody said, it can be 3 or 4 people, whatever this board sees fit to do, but we need. It needs to be me and board members that are at the table for mediation and discussing that mediation. So with the exclusion of the county and the city members, again, that narrows it down. We're looking for the ability to create this, as well as who would be interested in being on it, so that we can hopefully do that and be able to move going forward.
Make a motion for the creation and designation of authority to mediation committee as stated by Chair.
All right. Further discussion?
Couple things. One's gonna be for Jeff. So from the county, Commissioner Mary Cuny and myself will be part of the county mediation team along with council. So we're gonna have 30. So that's just for awareness. If this is an action needed, this is an action needed. Based on the position of the city, is it fair to assume that those members that they highlighted would have to abstain from this vote? And if yes, we don't have sufficient number of individuals to vote.
I think
Based on
that,
bylaws.
yeah, I think all the members of the board can vote on this action item. There's no conflict yet that has arisen. If we start talking mediation strategy and theories about how to go into mediation, or once we're in mediation, that's where the potential conflict of interest arises. But right now, it did not.
So this essentially, if I could, the action by the board would support the city's request to resolve that conflict by creating and compartmentalizing, if you will, this separate group.
Correct. Yeah, both sides would be concurrent. Yeah, we do agree there's a potential conflict for the city. SREC also agrees with potential conflict, so we're really not divergent at that point.
Okay, so make sure it's a clarity.
Good question.
But there's a limitation on what this committee could do because it will not have a quorum.
Anything that SREC would potentially agree to at mediation would be subject to board approval.
Copy.
So we could agree in principle, but then we would have to bring it back to the board at the next meeting or a special meeting to have it approved by this board.
Okay.
That is that.
I think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Go, you-
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the 3-headed monster we're about to create. And then, so are we saying that if this committee comes up with something, then they have to bring it back to the board?
Correct.
But the purpose of the committee,
So that we can discuss open and freely in an executive session and maintain our privilege, because there will not be any members of the county and or the city.
That's what I'm asking. So I thought you said it has to come back to board, the entire board to
If,
vote.
so if we go to mediation and at mediation, we agree in principle to items 1, 2, and 3. We would not be bound by that agreement in principle until we brought it back to the board.
As a whole.
As a whole,
Okay.
and said, here's what we've agreed to. In theory, between the city of Spokane and Spokane County, what does this board think of that?
And that would be very similar for the county. Our mediation committee can only agree in principle. It would have to be approved by the commissioners as a whole. And I would anticipate the same thing for anything the city comes up with, their council will have to approve it.
Very comparable like labor negotiations where you can go agree and maybe tentatively agree to some items. but-
Yeah.
I would add, I am hired and fired by the sheriff, also statutory appointed by the city manager and that kind of stuff. There's some legal authority as well from them. And to exclude them from this, I think it's gonna, to the sheriff's point, is going to amplify city of Spokane Valley's concerns about SREC and their representation.
You have proxy?
Not if it's Mr. Ellis, not if it's sure.
No, we're not asking
No,
for
yeah.
it.
proxy for Mr. Alex.
Well, if it would be someone from the county, then
No, that's not our intent. We're saying, let's have somebody from the city staff from the city of Spokane Valley. This is about making sure that they're the ones that needs a representative, period. I mean, I don't like the fact, I don't know how these rules get set. If it's the city that's setting these rules, I disagree with it. It's ridiculous, but whatever it takes to get them to the table. But we have no intention of trying to shoehorn a county employee in there. We need to make sure that the city of Spokane Valley gets represented.
I would recommend the deputy city manager.
we can certainly look into that. I don't, I knee jerk because I don't think it's an issue, but I have to look at that.
We'll make the relationship between SREC and the county and the Spokane Valley a little bit better.
But I also think to Scott's point, it's important that the Spokane Valley know that this isn't us. It's, you know, I get it.
I get it to the degree that that matters.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because a board member can have a
They
proxy,
can.
correct? And that's in a part of our bylaws.
I mean,
Right.
and I would say,
There's still a voting group.
yeah. And it's,
So what are we talking about adding a city person here? To
As a-
just sit in on it and see what the haps are, or are we talking about adding a city of Spokane Valley person that has the ability to vote?
I think it'd be my proxy with the ability to vote in this matter as determined as my proxy.
I mean, I think if we're looking at past practice, to be fair, Chief Williams and Maggie are not actually the designated positions in our bylaws, and they're the proxies that have been taking those positions, and we've allowed for that. So I
Good point.
think we're gonna have to really consider that.
That's really good point. And I think as it relates to what Chief Soto just said, if it was something allowable, then they're not voting, they're just informing on mediation strategy, this individual from the Spokane Valley.
Right.
Because
Because
the only voting would take place at the board.
Correct.
This is really just to make sure that we're all up to speed and we're expressing what the interest of the SREC board and agencies wants.
I mean, I think it seems, if it's allowable, I don't get it. We'll abstain from that conversation. It's not part of the.
I'll adjust my motion if you're okay with that, Chair. So creation and designation of authority mediation committee with the addition of a proxy to represent the city of Spokane Valley.
Second, sorry. Sorry.
No reading in my head.
I feel like though there's been some uncertainty by legal if that's possible, so should we probably know if that's actually.
How do we phrase that, that this board
Well,
supports?
what
the
I can
intent?
say is legally, we can do it. Whether, I haven't spoken to the city about it. So legally, we can do it. We can certainly do a proxy, our bylaws allow for that. But we are doing this in response, in a good faith response to come to mediation based on concerns the city of Spokane has raised. So that's where my hesitation comes from, is I have not spoken to that other side yet.
Can we phrase that in a way that the SREC board supports that?
Certainly you can phrase it that way, and we can go back to the
That's
city
our
and
desire.
say this is what's been requested and desired,
I
and
think this is significant. We support your concerns around trying to minimize any potential conflicts. But it's important that the city of Spokane Valley's interests are represented. Yeah. Do our motions work that way, or do we need to rephrase it then, Jeff? You think?
I think the motion works as stated.
Okay. So we got a motion, a second, any further discussion?
Do we want to try to limit who's on that team, or do we? How do we want to look at that? Who do we want on this committee?
About the only eligible members is.
Yeah, it makes sense to all the eligible members, you know, it's such a limited point, and you know, you may not be able to get everyone to all the meetings anyway, so having a large enough pool to grow is my recommendation.
Is it better for that group remainder to determine who would be individually or independently determine who's going to be represented? Who's going to represent SREC? Or would it be
At mediation.
At mediation, yeah, or would it be appropriate for this board to identify those?
I think it would be appropriate for that to identify who will represent SREC.
Right.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carried.
Can I say one thing? It's been called out a couple times that Maggie and I are proxies, and I think Chief Johnson is also. So
He's not, he's actually a designated position by the
okay, I thought it was fire chiefs.
Inland Empire Fire Chiefs.
That's definitely.
That's
Very good,
designated.
thank you.
Yeah.
New business. Quarter 1 board report, you can allow Scott to.
Yeah, really.
David.
Coaching, mentoring.
And I will clarify, it's the finance report, not the board report. And I'm gonna be brief on this, everyone. It's Q1. A lot of things change the next month, so I'm just gonna highlight a couple of areas. Our sales taxes are outpacing what we budgeted. I would caution us that the trend is already changing. The SREC follows the county trends really closely. The county was trending up during the first quarter. Our last month report that we just got, we're going back down again. So at least at the county level, we have not made any decisions to adjust our revenue forecast based on what we're seeing. We would want to see at least 6 months before, if and until we would make the adjustment. So it's good news, but I would expect next quarter, based on the initial number of Q2, we might be back to even or slightly ahead. The offsetting unfortunate thing is our excess tax continues to increase. Not surprising, given the trends that we've been seeing. Charges for services, that's just timing of, we don't budget until I believe May to start receiving our user fees due to timing of property tax payments and stuff, but we do have a couple of members who do pay for it. So those are just a couple of highlights on the revenue side. On the expense side, we are trending a bit under budget. And I think we all know reasons why. That's heavily driven off of headcount vacancies. I believe our budget is anticipates a 5% vacancy. And if you look at the back, we're about 9% vacancies through May right now. And then our technology service is the other piece that heavily weighs on that. We're trending fairly close to budget right now. A lot of that's just due to timing of purchases. So, like I said, it's short and sweet, quick updates, but happy to take any questions that folks have.
That's what I'm telling Scotty.
Yeah, how do you?
Credit works not gonna.
Any suggestions?
Yeah.
I'm always welcome for feedback. But that cover a couple areas that you covered.
A little more remedial training? Thank you, Scott. Old business, City of Spokane. Okay, so going back through where we were last board meeting. As far as updates around 12:58. That has gotten to a better place, in my opinion, where it essentially has similar language to House Bill 1155, which is, I believe, more intent consistent with equitable apportionment, and says really, hey, we're gonna enter into an ILA to apportion those dollars, and that both sides, agree on, or if not, we'll go to court to find a final solution. And so I don't believe it's been signed yet, but we anticipate that with an effective date of Jan 1, 2026. So I think it's obviously there's a lot of effort to get it back to that point, but I think we got to a good place that it's been my understanding that all the board members, as well as the law and fire agencies that are represented outside of the city, have always supported an equitable portion of where tax dollars are sourced. It's the potential subsidization or movement from other jurisdictions into the city that they're opposed to. And so I think this gives us the ability to do that. And so I think more to come on that. And obviously what happens in mediation would be a big determinator of what we do in the future with apportionment and what that looks like. So any questions on 1258? The other thing I'd touch on is if you look in your board packet and so the email chain that Jeff had referenced earlier, there was also some back and forth just on the CAD ILA, which has been developed. I know Dusty's going to talk about some other, timing things going on with CAD right now, but the summary out of that back and forth was, hey, the ILA discussion might be more appropriate on the heels of mediation, given the potential, for different outcomes in mediation, which I think makes sense. There's obviously some real-time operational impacts from not having that decision that we've been talking about, for over a year now. And I think it's just where we're at. And so we just have to acknowledge that and make the most of the circumstances, knowing that there's operational impact. Dusty will talk about some other operational impacts with CAD as well, unrelated to this topic. So it is what it is. And with operational impacts or potential financial impacts. And I think we just have to cross that bridge when we get there. And I'd say those are the big updates with City of Spokane right now. And again, tracking for that June 11th mediation date to hopefully get some resolution for everyone on the topic. Any questions? All right, facility update, Lori.
We are just finalizing some design. We've spent the last few months with different groups trying to talk about what is needed for our new facility and what we're hoping to see when it's all said and done. So we're hopefully going to be bringing something back next month or the month after on what our design is. In the meantime, we will be presenting to the building committee. That's going to be in early June. We'll go over it with them to see if there's anything that we didn't think of or anything that we got too excited about. And once we kind of have that design in place from that point forward, we'll start to look at costs and what are our hopes and dreams and what's our reality. So we'll continue to move forward. We've had a great experience so far. Looking forward to receiving all that.
Questions for Lori?
Still tracking for validation on the timeline that have been set forth previously.
I think it's pushed back a little bit. We're right now looking at a later date in 2026, just based on what we're seeing as far as construction timing and things like that. So we've got to couple of small hiccups that we're working through, and once we know that.
Hexagon, RMS, Lori.
So I added this to the agenda just because I want to make sure that this group is aware and maybe there could be some discussion to kind of give us an idea of what we're gonna be doing. I think I mentioned about 6 months ago that the city of Spokane had, along with us, they were working on an RMS project for their police department for records management, and they handle records for a good portion of the law enforcement agencies in this county. As we were looking at getting a new CAD and going away from Tyler, they also weren't very happy with Tyler's RMS, and so they were looking at also going a different path. They originally chose Axon and has been spending 3 or 4 years working through Axon to try to get their RMS up to speed, but in December, we're informed that it wasn't quite going to meet the needs of a multi-jurisdictional law enforcement community. So there's been some pivoting that has taken place in an effort to try to make this project go forward. And so in February, both Axon and Hexagon RMS presented to law enforcement groups and those folks that use the product. And at the end of that presentation, it was determined from that group that the best path forward would be through Hexagon. Recently, Under Sheriff Kittlestead took that forward to the executive core team members to look at the ability for us to do that and to make that purchase. So it's about a $3 million purchase for that Hexagon RMS. And ultimately that price was coming in due to the fact that we already had a contract with them. During that conversation, we had also said, hey, it makes sense for it to reside along with CAD. So we would take on the software portion of that, as well as the management of that software, not records. We're not gonna do records, just so everyone's clear. But the software computer portion of it, and additionally, we have built our hardware infrastructure for growth on our cloud system, so we would have the space to take it on right now. That went before those members. I haven't heard yet. I don't know where things are at with the different law enforcement agencies and whether or not that's going to be something that the agencies purchase going forward. I believe the quote that we were given was through the end of May. So I think we have a timeline that's quickly approaching. But this has an impact to us. It has an impact if we take this on to kind of play a part in the delaying of our CAD system and create some work and probably some additional positions that will be then charged out to our member agencies if we take that on. So I'm just honestly put it on here so that I can maybe see if there's any sort of movement or discussion that has taken place. So we have a better understanding of what we're trying to plan to do the next 6 months. I'm looking at you, law enforcement partners. Yeah. Thanks, God.
And maybe, I know Dustin's gonna give an update on CAD, but is it appropriate to fold the update on CAD kind of with this?
Sure.
Because that does have some impacts on timelines.
Sure. If you mind if I?
Absolutely.
All right. So we are going to be delaying our CAD. We've let our employees know that. There's basically, from my perspective, 3 reasons why we are delaying CAD. The first was that Hexagon, what we are purchasing and what we are implementing is a new product from Hexagon. They've been around for 20 to 30 years, but they've been on their older product. And so the product that we are going with is newer. They felt like their staff wasn't trained to the level that they wanted them to be. And quite honestly, when we were working with them, we didn't feel like we were getting the bang for our buck as far as that training process goes. So they wanted to regroup, retrain, and then implement, kind of delay implementation. So that's the first reason. Second reason is waiting for this RMS decision. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to how RMS and CAD are connected. There's interfaces that take years if we go down a different path. There's a different process from the county's perspective. The county is the one that's currently hosting New World, and we're looking at shifting that. So there's a lot of different things that occur with that. So we were hoping that if RMS could be decided soon, we could maybe look at trying to implement RMS and CAD around the same time, so that there's not the frustration of having to continue to work with New World or honestly to our law enforcement partners saying you guys have to start entering stuff on 3 different systems. And then the third reason was our staff was feeling not ready for the October go live date because of reasons 1 and 2. there was some concerns and some issues with that. So overall, it's a good thing that we're delaying it. We want to do it and do it right. That's what our motto has always been when it comes to CAD, because we want it to be a good experience. We don't quite have a date yet.
We're working with Hexagon, and hopefully by the end of this month, we'll have an updated project plan that would give us the target date, hopefully this coming spring. But again, this relies on some other decisions that haven't been made yet. So we're trying to be flexible, as Lori very well stated. Our goal is to do this right the first time, and to minimize the impact to our staff in training, and then to our partners in CAD to RMS, writing reports. If we link to one system, there's a change, and then 6 months later, we're changing again on them to learn a new system. So to try to minimize that impact.
But one thing for our non-law enforcement partners who weren't sitting in on some of these meetings, talking to New World, they told us they could not build a bridge between Hexagon and New World's RMS by the October go live date. In fact, they probably couldn't get that bridge built, if at all, before Hexagon could bring us on with their RMS project. There's really not a lot of good options for the law enforcement side of this. Once Axon stepped away and said they couldn't do what they'd been promising to do, that really put the law enforcement side of the house in a tough spot with records management. So
Was the 3 million, is that total cost, is that SREC's portion?
SREC won't have a portion of it, so we don't do records, so it'll be all given to the different agencies that utilize RMS.
I'll be specific to law enforcement then.
There would be, I anticipated there would have to be, because if the decision's made by law that yes, Hexagon RMS is the best product for us going forward. And yes, we agree that it makes most sense for SREC to host, then SREC will be put in that position of having to do billing out via an ILA. I would anticipate an ILA that agrees to what the jurisdictional allocations are for the implementation, as well as ongoing maintenance costs. So that's going to be, as I understand, where SREC will maintain a bulk. That doesn't happen today because the county is the owner host of that product, and the county bills the jurisdictions out, build out the initial implementation, and builds out the annual monthly subscription services. So can you talk about costs, if anything, to delay CAD for a period of time? Additional cost as far as implementation of the system to the back.
Yes, our goal going live in October would that we would then retire New World. Axon was going to go live in April, Hexagon CAD in October, so we had an agreement with New World to be able to get out of that 15-year contract when we were ready. So that would be about the end of this year. Once Hexagon CAD kind of sunk in, we knew that was going to work. If we were to delay, we would have the Hexagon costs, the current costs. Axon is a built-in cost already, and then we would carry the New World contract, or the county would, until we move forward with a replacement for RMS and for CAD.
And ultimately, those charges from the county come to everybody, so.
That's helpful. The other piece, kind of where I was more asking is on Hexagon CAD specific, is there a cost to SREC to delay the implementation out for a period of time?
No, because Hexagon is realizing part of the issue was their lack of ability to resource, get us what we need in the form of training and workshops to hit that October go live. And so they are understanding that. They're saying we can repeat several workshops we've already done at no cost, because we jointly feel we did not get what we paid for the first time. And so they're willing to make it right. So there's no additional cost from the Hexagon side.
Thank you. I think that's important for this board and for the community to be aware that this delay is not causing an additional cost for SREC. It is really the vendor who has requested additional time, and we agree with that additional time.
Almost serendipitous too.
Yes, and it does actually help with a I would say an imminent decision on RMS. Then back to your original point, I think it's important for this group to be aware that while we did negotiate an early exit at no cost with Tyler New World, we don't know yet what a continued RMS only cost is going to be to our law partners. And if that's going to be reduced from today's monthly maintenance or annual maintenance, or if that's going to be the same amount. So that could be, that's an unknown addition, that's an unknown expense. If you look at them running kind of in not in parallel, but ongoing with New World, Tyler, and then jumping to Hexagon, there shouldn't be an additional cost, but we don't know what they're going to say when we say, hey, we need to continue on with only one of your product. And I think, well, maybe is it of the 4 suites, it's 2 of them,
It'll
3
be
of
the
them.
mobile product and the RMS product at least, because the mobile is what the officers would use to enter into the system, so that's 2 modules at least.
So I just make sure our law partners have awareness that we don't know yet what that additional cost may be. That's uncertain.
See, Maggie's had her hand up. Go ahead, Maggie.
Thanks. I just wanted to throw out that it's my sort of high level understanding of the RMS conversation that it could impact SPD's records operations. And so our sort of position right now is similar to the CAD ILA, that we really need to see mediation through before we take a position on the RMS acquisition.
And a couple of us from the county had a good conversation with Maggie and a couple of the representatives from the city last week, just making sure this is a really critical decision for a lot of our jurisdictions. So obviously the city of Spokane manages the records and are an integral part of it. So having us be really closely connected on these moving parts is really important. So there's still some uncertainties with it.
Best of interest on both sides.
Yep, absolutely.
So I would say that at this point, we're not gonna meet the end of May deadline that we were given by Hexagon for the quote, and we're gonna need to address that.
And if I'm not mistaken too, that was because SREC already has a partnership arrangement with them. We were able to negotiate easily a couple $100,000 discount on that, right?
Correct.
Should be good to talk about any unintended consequences of
Delay.
Mhm. As part of that
It
negotiation.
cost the law partners an additional 300, was it 3 million down to 2.6 or something like that? Yeah. Yeah, without taxes. Yes, the discount without taxes.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if the services agreements are one of those exemptions that the legislature pulled that no longer is not subject to sales taxes. It might be one of those. So
Purchase within the next 3 hours.
Clarification, back to costs for the RMS system to SREC. I thought I heard you mention you might need to hire, so that would be a cost, and so is. Just to understand the process, that would not be a cost to all members, it would be a cost to only, in a separate billing process to just law. Okay, thank you.
and again, that's because the county hosts and manages those applications, for Tyler New World. The county has individuals, employees who are dedicated towards that. So our employees go away. I shouldn't say that.
No.
Those
No, yeah,
resources go away.
Yeah.
Trust me, we have other places that we. So the costs that were with the county that get allocated out would now be would possibly be with SREC, you know, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Similar cost, just the bill comes from a different place.
Correct.
Copy that.
So partner agencies wouldn't necessarily see increase, decrease, they would just come from a different avenue.
Thank you.
And I also think it's important to let the fire service know as well that we were looking at that October date in hopes that we would move away from Infor, but with the delay, we're gonna still have to go with another probably signing of the Infor contract.
That contract renews in April. And so depending, that timing becomes important, and that at about a $100,000 maintenance fee annually, that will be renewed then, if we weren't able to go live.
I would be remiss if I didn't highlight again for this team, I think everyone knows, but the ability to negotiate an early term at no cost from Tyler New World was in excess of $3 million of our remaining obligation. And that was pretty significant because I didn't think they were going to agree to that. And that would have been additional cost to SREC, additional cost to law, additional cost to our community. So that was big. And I just can't highlight enough. I don't know what if anything Tyler New World's going to be willing to do when we come in.
That's the second bounce.
Yep,
Mm,
they're unintended.
mhm.
Okay, well, and it sounds like, RMS has to be solved, and, and it sounds like this is where we're at, so we're just gonna have to get answers to those questions, assess the impact and move forward. Any further discussion on that topic? So I think that covered Hexagon RMS, we covered a little bit of your report, but we'll then bounce into staff reports. Kim, you're up with operations.
My report's way better. So, it's not hard to beat at that point. The statistics have stayed the same for the most part, as far as we're seeing just a slight increase in the minimum crime check as far as the negative difference that we've been seeing throughout the year. But we still do have a negative of this month compared to this month last year. Our average wait times are still staying where they're at. We are seeing the increase in calls for service go to law and fire as the season improves and more people do more things. Crime check, we are still seeing a negative variance on that one. They do more things. The online reporting is still down compared to what it has been, but our on the phone reporting is shrinking on that negative part of it. And then our EMD it's gone up just a couple seconds. We're still well within that goal for the IAD standards. Lori and I went with Carrie, our training coordinator, and our QA team to accept our accreditation over in Florida, and it was a really cool conference. One of the other fun facts that they gave us is that there is less than 5% across the entire world that use priority dispatch that are accredited. So that was one of our other really small pools. So it's really exciting to be a part of that team. The highlights that they had there at the conference were really exciting to see. So just another part that goes with those EMD stats and what we utilize them for is for those accreditation pieces. And we've already made it through our first quarter with the good standing numbers for accreditation. So we'll continue to fill in on that. Our hiring, we have 4 in 911 that'll be hitting the floor in the next week or two. And then we have a group of 7 that'll be training out of the academy in the next week. And so just a lot of moving parts in 911. We have 2 in law that are doing well. And then like we had said last time, we're going to hold off on fire until after fire season. It's just a little challenging to be able to train during fire season. We did hire and fill our last report tech position.
That's how we do most of our training.
It's new to me still. We just train, yeah. Go do it. And so we have another academy starting on June 2nd, and right now we have 3 slotted for it. So status quo for the most part on operations. Any questions?
I have another question, answer this, but just confirm, when we show budget field training, the training is in our field category.
Yes,
we're just highlighting in our who's in training.
Yes, how many are in training, correct. Yeah, and we do have 2 supervisor promotion that are to be going through the process. We'll be reaching out to partner agencies for a panel here shortly. We're hoping to do that, I think, the first week of June.
So that number means there's only 12 trained law dispatchers working.
Yes.
Other questions, comments for Kim? All right, back to you, Deputy Technical.
Absolutely. We talked about CAD ad nauseum. I will add, our analysts still have a lot of work to do, so they're keeping busy moving forward with the CAD system as we kind of wait for other decisions with mediation, the ILA with the city, a decision on RMS. So there's work to be done, and so they're still moving forward. On the radio shop side, we started doing preventative maintenance as the snow melts, getting up there with the HVAC and generators, we're upgrading the SAA and Hoodoo sites. As we talked about last year, that work is starting this week to improve the bandwidth at those two sites. And then finalizing tower specifications at the new facility. We ran into a curveball with the city of Spokane Valley of what height of tower would be allowed per city code. But we're able to pivot and still meet the needs of what we have there with the changes that were thrown. IT is also working on prepping for the new facilities. We're getting more details, working very closely with our builder and architect. Joe and the GIS team have ran through evacuation system testing. So they did that the last couple of weeks, made some changes from the previous 2 years to make that streamlined for our dispatchers to improve how fast they can get those out and then notifying the public. So knock on wood, we won't need to use it for the near future, but we're confident it's up and ready to go. Any questions?
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dusty.
Yep.
Tim, are you?
He is on vacation, so
Jenny is
Jenny.
here. All right.
Hi, finance is happily going to file the BARS report, thank you. And we're working on our normal day-to-day business and focusing now on the 2026 budget.
Any questions for Jim?
Jeff is also on vacation.
I was gonna
Everyone's on
say, I
vacation.
I've not spotted Jeff. Anybody covering Jeff's report this morning? Megan, you're up.
Yes, Jeff and I just got back from the Labor Relations Institute conference last week. It is a conference specific to the management side of labor relations, has cities, counties, other 911 agencies, so it's always good to go kind of get an update on legislation that affects HR and labor management, and then network with specifically other agencies that have bargaining, whether it be 911 or I sat with a guy from Spokane Transit and got to talk with him. So that was good. On the same note, all three of our union groups have signed contracts for 25 and 26. The last one signed in March. So we're done for about a year.
For now.
And then we also just completed, I think all got an email, we just completed our DRS audit. DRS came and asked for quite a bit of information about everyone enrolled in PSERS and PERS and contributions and enrollment. They found 2 issues, a couple of findings on reporting retirees that come back to work, which is kind of a one-off. We've had 2 in the last 6 years. So we're moving forward with making some corrections to that, but then everything else was great. Nothing else was found, so.
Any questions for Megan? Well, thanks for all the work on the contracts. Enjoy the next year. All right, administration, Lord.
So one of the things that I'm starting to get asked, because it's that time of year, is if we have any idea of what user fees are gonna look like. We have kind of halted our budgeting for 2026 until we get through the mediation process in June. It's hard to know kind of what our staffing will look like, what our needs will be. So we're gonna wait and then hit that harder after that mediation date. I had the opportunity to be there to get out it or be able to speak to an award winner for us this last week at the EMS Awards. Cami Worthy, who's been with us for about 3 years, won the Telecommunicator of the Year this year. I'm super proud of her. She's an absolute rock star of a human. She's a very pleasant person to be around, which is nice on a 12-hour shift. And she is a go-to for a lot of folks when it comes to EMD, and was played a huge part in having some of the highest scores that we've seen. So was really excited to be able to be there this week to get her recognized and show everyone else what a great employee she is. Additionally, we also did get notification that one of our trainers has won the Trainer of the Year award for State APCO.
Well,
So that's Reagan Hayes. Again, an incredible employee. She has put together a couple of really neat trainings, one on autism in 911, and so being able to speak with folks that are experiencing crisis in that situation, as well as a really well done domestic violence class. She's one that a lot of folks around the state call us and ask us if there's a way that we can provide those classes to them. Because I just really enjoyed the information she provided, so extremely proud of her. We'll go to Wenatchee in the fall and watch her receive that award. Yeah, it's well earned. And then the only other thing is we recently filled, we've had a additional record specialist position, so for public records that we haven't filled, we had a part-time person that was doing that for us, but we reached a point where we can no longer keep up with the staff that we had. So we filled that position with 911 supervisor applied for that. So we have Ash Stewart in that position now and now have a team of 2.5 and Sherelle. So that was a good get for us, and she was able to hit the ground running. Other than that, just usual stuff, buildings, systems.
I just had a couple more comments on Lori's observation of the user fees. And the finance committee has talked about these things quite a bit. We do recognize it's critical. It's critical for the partner jurisdiction to know as early as they can about what they might look like. I think we've recognized that there is a need to do a complete revision of the user fees. So I would expect after we get to the mediation, there will be, as Lori said, some urgency focused on that, so we can come back with a variety of recommendations for this board to consider and the partner jurisdictions to consider that reflects kind of where we are today, 6 years after our inception. That maybe reflects more of current practices, operations, that sort of thing. So it's not lost on the finance committee as to the desire for all the other partner agencies to get some clarity on it sooner than later. But there would be recommendations from the finance committee, ultimately this board and the partner jurisdiction to agree on those things. So.
Any questions, comments? All right, anyone signed in? We would, no need for executive today. We would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Something to adjourn.
Thank you. Have an outstanding day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
I feel like I added something.